Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this 40th edition of ClarITea Chat. Thank you all for attending this, watching the recordings, and encouraging us week after week. Just keeps us going. So today we have with us Rajeev Jorapur, who's the CIO of Bajaj Auto, the company behind the most loved motorcycle brands in almost 80 countries. Bajaj Auto carries its rich legacy and unconventional thinking. The country and industry suffered the loss of Mr. Rahul Bajaj recently, but his legacy lives on. Rajeev, welcome to this session.
Hi, over a cup of tea.
Over a cup of tea, yes. So let me give a quick summary before we hear it from Rajeev. This is my airtime. So Rajiv's experience ranges from Nimkar Agriculture Research Institute, which is R&D, Anil Chemicals in manufacturing operations, almost I think 14 years between that, then Videocon Appliances doing an SAP program, then Mercedes Benz in IT, and then as a CIO before joining Bajaj Auto as a CIO 9 years back. Now, that's an amazing gold mine of research, operations, and technology, which we will get to dig into. So thanks, Rajeev, for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So our freewheeling chat with Rajeev will cover his early grooming as an energy researcher, as almost 12 years as a chemical engineer. He'll share learnings from running factory operations with zero prior experience. Okay. And then pivoting to executing a SAP project without knowing SAP, then transitioning to full-time IT roles with Mercedes-Benz, executing, some of the India First programs. And one of the highlights there was developing the IT for the future factory at Chakan. One unique thing which I also mentioned in my post was that he has mentored partners to create joint success. With some really engaging case studies. And he has some other hidden talents which we will get into. We'll end the chat with a rapid fire round and then a reverse question to me. So, Rajeev, before we start talking of serious things, let's have a fun start to our chat. Okay.
Sure.
So, I think not very difficult for people to guess that you're a marathoner given your figure. Which beats a Hollywood star, actually. So, Rajeev, how did you start running marathons?
So the credit or the blame will be on my elder son Viraj. One day after a very heavy lunch, he looked at my slightly protruding belly and he said, "Dad, you are losing fitness." I said, "Come on, I trek, I go to Himalayas, I play tennis. What do you mean? What is your idea of fitness?" So he said, "Can you run a marathon?" I said, "Well, I can't do it today, but it should be no problem. I can learn how to run a marathon." So that's how I started learning to run, and that's how it started.
Oh wow, that's awesome, and I think it's not no different than running operations without an experience, without an experience. So you give Rajiv something, and he'll figure out a way to do it well.
So he pricked my ego, right? Now that is something which you
I
can't live
know,
with.
I know, and that too, dad's ego, right? No, that is really interesting, Rajiv, and I'm sure like people can reach out to you to pick up a few things about how to run a marathon.
Of
Okay,
course.
so yeah, Rajiv's philosophy, as you can also guess, from his learning to run marathon, is learn it first, build it for the long term with the right architecture, make it rules and processes centric, not personality driven. And as we go through his journey, you will see that this is reflected as like some sort of an underpinning in his journey. I can already see quite a few comments flowing in there. So when we look at our audience profiles, we have observed CXOs, founders, IT managers, and technology industry folks in our audience. And everybody comes here with a common agenda, which is how to truly succeed with the technology-enabled transformations, to break the 17% jinx, that is like 83% of the programs failing to deliver business value. So let's see who's here. But then let me request all our audience to share your name and where you are joining from in the comment box on whatever platform you're watching it, either LinkedIn or YouTube. So let's see who all have joined us. Well, we have a regular, and the first one to comment here is Sandeep Batra. Sandeep joins us from Germany. So Sandeep, thanks for giving up a part of your afternoon siesta on a Saturday. And we have Sumit here. Thanks, Sumit, for poking everybody to uh, tell this. We have Amir Siddiqui from Middle East. Yeah, we do have a good audience set from Middle East. Then we have Amrinder. Amrinder again has been a regular, but he took a vacation from ClarITea Chat for some time. I don't know, Amrinder, what you were doing, but thanks for being back. Then we have Abhishek Swain here. Thanks, Abhishek, for joining. We have another regular, and he was also a guest in one of my ClarITea Chats, Guru Raj Pagali. He used to head spare parts digital in Tata Motors passenger cars. We have another of our guests who's now in the audience, Mayank. Hey, thanks, Mayank, for joining us from Bangalore. We have Pranesh joining us from Dubai. Wow, another one from Middle East. We have Badri. I think you need to say hi to him, Rajiv.
He's making sure I'm secure.
Yeah, yeah, he's making sure that you don't let out any trade secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, then thanks, Badri, for joining. Then we have Partha. Partha is from Delhi. Thanks, Partha, and thanks for your regular comments on my post as well. And then we have Piyush Agrawal from Delhi. Hey, Piyush, are you my classmate, Piyush? Yes, yeah, say yes here. And then we have another regular, my first guest, and a big, I would say, um, a big encouragement I get every time from him. Vijay Sethi is
Hello,
here. Thank
sir.
you for joining. Yeah. And then I have Amrendra, another ex-colleague from Ahmedabad. He's now in Adani. Then we have Anil Yadav from Jaipur. We have Sai Krishna from Bangalore, Manu from UAE, another one from Middle East, Nilesh from Bajaj Auto. So you have multiple eyes on you,
Yes.
Rajiv.
I'm being
I
fancy
know.
myself.
Okay, so that's not Piyush Agrawal that I was looking for. And then lastly, we have Veena from Pune.
That's my wife.
Oh, okay. I was like, name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Thanks, Veena, for encouraging Rajiv here. You have been his moral support, and once again, she's there.
Yes.
And Abhay again from Bajaj Auto. Okay, so let's get started now, guys. Keep it coming. So please share your names, and I think you can start sharing your questions as Rajiv starts speaking. Okay. So let's begin, Rajiv. In the first part, let's quickly, do a sort of summary of your journey. So, Rajiv, let's do a quick 2 minute recap of your childhood right up to your first job.
Okay, very happy memories of my childhood in Aurangabad. Studied in a convent school, learned the value of discipline. Um, I loved reading, and St. Francis exposed me to the works of Woodhouse, Lord Emsworth, and Jeeves were my favorite characters. I learned to see humor in situations, subtle humor, not the gross ones. I love that. Developed love for literature, George Bernard Shaw, and the use of language to get your message across is something which I learned there. Then I also learned in 11th and 12th the how to use freedom. Suddenly, from a convent school, suddenly opened up. Nobody to police you. Started bunking classes, and the value of perception. That how can Rajiv be a truant boy? I mean, he is a sincere guy, right? So had fun there while I prepared for JEE. Um, in IIT, I loved my hostel H4. We called it. There's a book published, Madhouse. All lovely experiences there. And as the name suggests, it was a madhouse, and we did all sort of stuff. A lot of pranks, a lot of studies. Um, but what I learned in IIT was to repurpose the meaning of competition. So up to 12th, competition was always, to beat somebody. So it was perceived, at least I used to perceive it as a threat. So if he's better, if he's a strong guy, then I have to work that much harder. I have to beat it. But what IIT taught me was to repurpose it and look at the purpose of competition as essentially to bring the best out of yourself. So that's
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
that's a great experience I had in IIT, and I just love it. So yeah, that's in brief.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, I loved it when you said that you utilized that time, that you used to bunk classes in preparing for IIT, and you cracked IIT Mumbai. And I think, sound like resonates with Hostel 4 of Chichore, actually.
Actually, it was shot in my hostel.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
Nitish Tiwari is ex alumni and ex H4.
Okay, okay. So
So
that means that H4 is really that famous, right, inside IIT as well.
they showed the rivalry with Hostel 3. So my brother was in Hostel 3, and that rivalry, luckily we limited it to when we were on the campus and not at home, but it was a very intense rivalry.
I hope there was no Shraddha Kapoor rivalry between you and.
Luckily for me, the time he's in US, so right now he's sleeping, so I can take advantage and speak my mind.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks, Rajiv. I mean, you are much more colorful than you look. How serious you look otherwise. Yeah. So Rajiv, now I think that was really funny. Please give us a quick overview of your career, the company's roles, and one highlight from each one of them, just to give people some sort of a map of your career so far.
Sure. So I, fresh out of IIT, full of energy, full of youthful idealism, enthusiasm. I said, I don't want a factory job. Let me do something which is impactful. So I joined Nimkar Agricultural Research Institute, Fulton, as a research engineer, fresh straight out of college. And Dr. Rajvanshi, he has been my mentor. We are still in touch. He won the Padma Shri Award this year for his selfless work. And the whole objective was to do something using technology and improve the quality of life of people in rural India. And Nimka Research Institute, the 12 years, we were focusing on developing technologies using locally available raw materials like agricultural residues, sweet sorghum, and generate either fuel for use in cooking and lighting, or for industrial furnaces, and therefore make it sort of a self-sufficient taluka. That was the concept, and I enjoyed my work. And luckily for me, my wife Veena also agreed. I mean, wholeheartedly to live in a small town. Not an easy decision for a young girl. not earning enough salary. I'm sure she would have got lot more high-paying boys after her. But luckily for me, and we had a lovely time there. The biggest learning which I got from there is to develop a research mindset. I'll speak about it later on, but that mindset I'm carrying to this day, and that's really useful. So after that, I moved on to Anil Chemicals. Essentially, it was what we would today call a startup. It had all the so the idea there was to develop environmental friendly products for use in packaging of cosmetic products. So it was producing co-extruded aluminum tubes. The equipments were from Germany, and my job was to set up the equipment, set up the operations, and then make it running. So that was in Anil Chemicals. That is where Sanjay Deshmukh, the then head of IT there, he taught me the basics of IT, and I'm grateful to him. He is the one who opened the door for the next phase of my career. Um, After that, I joined Videocon with a very clear focus of implementing SAP there. It was the Y2K period, and SAP consultants were charging through the roof. And here, this president said, why can't we do it ourselves?" And I said, "Of course we can do, but I don't know it." So I said, "What would it take to learn?" I said, "About 6 months or 7 months, and it's no great rocket science to learn software." So that was my task in Videocon to learn SAP, set up a team, assemble the team, and implement it in Videocon. After that, I moved on to, and that's how I started drifting from research into IT. Then I joined Mercedes Benz India. Lovely time I had. Learned a lot of corporate stuff there. It was a multinational company. India was a small subsidiary. But I took a love for German language. I learned German, and I was always a people person, so I would always try to connect to people, and language is a very good connector. So I said, let me learn German, then I can speak to them in their language. And so in Mercedes Benz, we had a lot of exciting projects implementing spare parts in on SAP for the first time in the Daimler universe. We had Siebel connecting directly to the consumers at a time when the dealer was supposed to be was looked as the customer of the OEM, and visual analytics. Had a lovely time there, and Pradeep Bhargav was my mentor. He moved from being my boss to my mentor now to a very close friend. I had a lovely time there, and then after that I moved on to Bajaj currently, and it's been an exciting time. So Bajaj also, it's very fascinating to see the thinking evolving from plant centric to a brand centric to a customer centric, so while Mercedes taught me strategy, Bajaj is teaching me reimagining the future and building
Awesome.
the and making it a reality. So it's been an exciting time.
Awesome. What a map, 12 years in research. I'm sure that time you would have never thought I'll get into IT.
No way.
Uh, like I can connect it when I was a passionate service engineer of excavators. I never thought I will get into IT. I was like, I used to more think like I'll become a service head. But then moving on to Anil Chemicals,
Yeah.
without an operations experience, being the operations in charge. We'll come to that actually. That is a very fascinating one. We'll come to that later. And then
Sure.
moving to again not knowing SAP, learning SAP, and then implementing it. Then again going in, getting into MNC. MNC, generally tends to be an ocean compared to
Yeah.
a pond or a lake, and you can easily get lost. But I think you cracked that as well in terms of how to manage the corporate
Yeah.
and work with the headquarters, learn German, connect with people and all that, and then finally Bajaj. So I think it's a fascinating map, that is there, and I'm sure this is, getting people now really warmed up to know more about each of these. So let me get there. So Rajiv, you spent a long time in research with Minter Agriculture Research Institute. So tell us, some about your learnings, and maybe like, failures give you good learning. So tell us something about maybe a couple
Yeah,
of incidences and what you learned from there.
sure. So I'll try to keep it sharp and focused for the session today. So my job, as we said, or my purpose to joining NIMCAR was to develop technologies for the rural people, improve their quality. I worked on three topics. One was to set up a pilot plant to produce ethanol from sweet sorghum using solar energy. So the idea there was ethanol can be used as a fuel for cooking and lighting. And during the production of ethanol, about 70-80% of the energy goes in distillation. And why don't we use solar energy and therefore make it a green initiative? So that was the idea. The second idea was why don't we use sugarcane leaves which are left on the fields after harvesting? Instead of simply burning them, why don't we use them, produce gas out of that? And the gas can be used either as a substitute for diesel in diesel pump sets and gensets, or it can be used in furnaces as a fuel. Idea very good. Um, we demonstrated the technology, the framework of success as far as defined by meeting project objectives, etc., were met. The topic, of course, is again we come to what is definition of success. So for me, it was actually scale, and can we really scale it to the large swathes of rural India, and are we in a position to do that? So that in the reasons were different in the two cases. In the first case for ethanol, why we couldn't do it was we had strong external forces which we could not actually overcome. Ethanol was not allowed to be sold as an open fuel. We were pitching for it to be treated as an industrial solvent or a commercial fuel, but it had to go through excise and very regulated ecosystem. So we couldn't crack that. And gasification, I would say we really couldn't scale it in terms of the surrounding ecosystem which was required to make it a reality in the real world. The material handling systems, the other governance processes, the engineering to really manufacture these gasifiers at scale. These are broadly the reasons why we couldn't scale. But if I look at my learnings, um, so there was this one view is we look at internal challenges, what is the project level challenge, and are we able to do it? But then this element of external challenges and what strong headwinds they would bring in that would prevent scale is something maybe we could have anticipated, maybe I don't know, but it's hindsight. The second, I think, more important, which I've carried the learning to this day, is the ability to forge win-win partnership with strategic partners. See, if we were able to build a very strong ecosystem, there's no way one can do everything ourselves by oneself. However, much would like to own the idea, have a strong sense of my thing. But the realization that we need a strong partnership, it has to be a win-win strategic partnership. Maybe something which we tried, but we couldn't crack it, and maybe these are the, I would say, on hindsight, reasons why we couldn't take it to the scale. And the third, what really taught me as a personal human being and as a leader are three things. And I will use a rule of three, right? Not more than three, right? So the first, what it taught me is keen observation. Now, when we are as a researcher and when we are observing something, and I always believe God has given us two eyes for a reason, right? One eye you see as an observer, and one eye you see as a participant in the process. So now, what is the difference? An observer to me is neutral to outcomes. He's observing, and the participant is attached to a specific outcome. He's working to make sure that the outcome I desire is will be reached, and he's working towards that. And the ability to hold these two together is a great competency which I would urge in everybody of us to inculcate. So while
Absolutely.
we, while we think of opposites as separate, I like to think of opposites as a continuum. Whether it is success or failure, whether it is participant or observer, it's a continuum. And to add an element of humor, it's like the Schrodinger's cat in the box, right? The cat is both dead and alive at the same time.
That's
And
right. That,
Varun, my younger son, who doesn't value my understanding of physics that high, will have a laugh at this analogy of quantum. But essentially, that is what I train myself to say that, hey, can I hold both opposites? They are right in their own, from their own perspectives, and holding them together will enrich. So that's what Fulton taught me, and I'm carrying that those learnings to this day.
No, that's awesome. Man. I think like I think we all start like that. Like early in our career, we are solving problems, and uh, we don't, and I think we also cannot have that kind of strategic view or like that outside in view. I think these experiences teach you that, and very important one on the partners, that you can't do everything yourself. You
Yeah,
definitely need partners, right?
yeah,
So let me move on, Rajiv. Then you then went to Anil Chemicals in
yes,
Aurangabad.
yes.
Again, your favorite headed operations with zero experience. So share a couple of experiences from there, and a very interesting one, like how you got into technology. What was the problem you tried to solve that you got into technology?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I always imagined my life to be like a. I think it was described very well by either J. Krishnamurti or I think one of P.G. Woodhouse's books. So he said, "Be like a leaf." You say, fluttering with the wind and happy wherever the wind carries you. So that sort of at the back of my mind, I had that philosophy. So Anil Chemicals essentially came about from a need to reinvent myself. Okay, and there was this plant. I had my chemical engineering background. There was this plant to be set up. I had to set up operations, and therefore I took that as a challenge, and we did that. But imagine the scenario where it's a chemical process industry, so it's running 24/7 by 365, and there are these lines. We are making coaxial tubes. These are the next gen tubes at that time, used for toothpaste or shaving creams or these cosmetic products. So the first version would be aluminum tubes. Second version was polypropylene with an aluminum foil, and this was the latest version then, which was fully polymer, so it's fully recyclable. But we had to set this up, and it needed an understanding of chemical engineering and chemistry. So I enjoyed that work, um, but I had no experience of operations. Right. So the first learning for me was the meaning of time, or the value of time. Many experiences, but one. So because these tubes are very fragile, and it's running continuously. It's running at, it was used to run at 300 kg per hour processing. And now let us say, and because they are so fragile, and you had to be in a very dust free atmosphere, it had to be absolutely clean, and defects like varying thickness of the tube, okay, or some marks on the surface would get accentuated when you print it. So these were defects. Now imagine that there's a defect and somebody says there's a defect. Now what do? If you stop the line, the polymer in the dyes and all would get charred, and the whole thing of opening it up and cleaning it up 2 3 hours down the drain. If you allow it to run while you are trying to find out the source, you are losing 300 kg per hour rate of raw material. So you had to train yourself to really do the diagnosis and arrive at it. And what I saw was early on, while I thought I was taking very quick decisions, on hindsight I would say I was taking very hasty decisions. And I make a difference between a hasty decision and a quick decision. A hasty decision is taken from a mindset of fear, from a mindset of inadequate knowledge, and from a mindset of a blind shot in the dark. Let's hope it works. Whereas a quick decision is taken basis competency, basing calculated risks, basis a very decisive way of working. So it taught me two things. It taught me how to take quick decisions, and it taught me how to take decisive actions. And this was completely antithesis to a research mindset. Whereas in research, you are saying, let me gather all the information. I don't want to miss out anything. I want to be sure this is the reason. And in a production floor, you don't have that luxury. You have to act. So it
Yeah,
was, as I said, and I used to treat them as two ends of the spectrum, and you hold together. So research,
absolutely,
you develop the diagnosis ability, and production, you act decisively.
absolutely. And I
So
think it's like pendulum swinging the entire distance.
Yes.
Yeah. So, now this was also a part of where your transition towards technology
Yes.
started. So tell us that
Yes.
story about, like,
Yes. So now this plant is in Aurangabad and the marketing office in Bombay. All the clients were big companies like Hindustan Lever, Pierce, Lakme, and all of that. The deals would happen in Bombay, plant in Aurangabad, and the our marketing people would be forced to answer questions like, when can you give me? Can you load it tomorrow? Can you do it tomorrow? And they had no visibility of what was happening on the plant. So then Sanjay Deshmukh, the IT head Sanjay Deshmukh, so we consulted and then said, why don't we give visibility of the plant to the marketing folks in Bombay, and so they will be able to see the loading and all of that. And that is when I sort of understood the world, started learning the world of IT. Before that, my knowledge of IT was Fortran programming and BASIC, which was taught in IIT, and some programs I had done in research for my academic for the research purpose. But this is where he taught me these modem dialing and ERP and all that stuff. So that's how sort of I started drifting with the wind towards IT.
no, that's awesome. Like, I think good story around, like, the difference between hasty and quick decisions,
Yeah.
and like the entire change from the research, from where you were coming from a research point of view, and then, like, connecting Aurangabad and Mumbai using technology for the customer, actually, to give
Yes.
visibility to the customer.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, Rajiv, you shifted completely to IT with Videocon. So
Yes.
yeah, you told a little bit about how that happened. So maybe, like, you can give some quick insights, and then we can move to the next one.
Yeah, so that was the Y2K era, and everybody was wanting to have some systems to handle this, and Videocon had decided for SAP. They had two divisions: the international division, which was producing air conditioners and other products. So there, Siemens was implementing, and we had the appliances division, where the then director, Mr. Jagdish, he said, "Why don't we do it ourselves?" Uh, and
Um, did we lose Rajiv, or did you guys lose me? Vinay, can you quickly check whether did we lose Rajiv, or did you guys lose me? Okay,
yeah,
we
sorry,
lost.
I was off for some time, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're frozen for a while, like you were in a meditative state.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, go on.
No problem. So that is how we got into Videocon, and with a single-minded focus of SAP. I had no background, but again, the research way of approaching a problem, study it, and and we said we'll need about 6 to 7 months to study the software, and then we will need an internal team, and we will be able to do it within a year and a half or so. So that's how we did it, and been a great success. We still remember those days, and we still remember our learning. And I will, if that person is on the call, he or she would really be embarrassed. But we had a case where it was only one server, and at that time, right? And we had the development and QA. I mean, there's no development, so it's on same server, the production, everything. And this person was an ABAPer, and by accident, a table got dropped.
Oh my God.
Okay, the whole operation stands still, nothing. And 80 folks in the call will know what it means to drop a table in a live system, in an integrated system like SAP.
Oh my God.
We got all of us together. We huddled. It had happened at around, I think, 4 or 30 or 5 in the evening. We got everything together. Then we did a from the backup. We did a point in time recovery, which we had never attempted before. We referred the manuals on how to do it, and we got the point in time recovery from the backup and restored, and then we operated it.
Awesome.
So yeah, great experience.
Yeah, no. We all have some of those experiences of a crisis,
Correct.
and I think if you have been in a real crisis, then the blame game doesn't really happen. Actually, it's like boss,
Yes,
everyone together. In fact, you need the guy who created the crisis the most because you know what he has done.
yes, yes. But that is when actually it also taught me this importance of focus and awareness.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So while you need to be, the team needs to be focused on the problem, you also need to be aware of the other people and keep them at bay so that the people who are required to focus on solving the problem are able to solve the problem.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in our CRM, same CRM that you did in Mercedes Siebel, when we were doing an upgrade, we had a similar crisis, and and we had to really do a complete mind shift. Okay, now I'm talking to. No, we have to remember, like now I'm
Correct.
talking to the headquarter people, so a completely
Correct.
different. Now I'm talking to the customers, which is dealers. Okay,
Correct.
so you have to use a different language, different mindset, a different set of reassurances. And then when you're talking to the techies out there helping you, the Oracle guys and all the other people, a
Yes.
completely different mindset. But I think, yeah, you put it rightly. The awareness is required.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Rajiv, let's move on to your next stint in Mercedes Benz. Again, a long one.
Yes.
Uh, so you joined Mercedes Benz, and typically, I mean, I have had that experience myself of working in MNCs like India operations or regional arms, and generally, they only execute. Strategy and architecture generally happens in the headquarters. But it was really refreshing to know that you managed to do differently than all the other MNCs. So tell us some interesting ones from there.
Yeah. So there are three instances. I'll just keep it short. The first one was we had a big problem on the spare parts. The system was a legacy system. It was a closed box. Nobody knew what was inside. And dealers couldn't order throughout the day. Customers were suffering for low service levels. And the after sales head was very keen to get to a modern solution. So we huddled together. Pradeep Bhargav, at that time he was not still the CIO. He was heading applications. We got together and we said we can do it in SAP, no problem. But it was never done in the Daimler world. Uh, and it was a very high risk because Mercedes is a very, I mean, the clientele, right? They have very low tolerance for missteps. And it was from a business perspective a great risk, but credit to Pradeep, who in the board, he said we can do it. And the MD asked him directly, are you sure you can do it? Your head is on the block. And he said, yes, we can do it. And that confidence came from deep competency within ourselves, that we knew SAP and we knew the processes, and therefore we didn't see any great risk there. So that was one, and it opened the gates for establishing a strong credibility of the internal IT team within not only the Indian arm but within the global arm. And the global CIO suddenly became a very strong friend of ours, a very strong supporter. And we pitched the story that we are small, so take advantage of that. We can do a lot of experimentation. We can try out new technologies. There's no business risk at a global level because we are very small. But the leverage that we can get when we test technologies would be immense. So he fully supported us. The next best step was when we said we were looking for a DMS, and we said we need to go in for an integrated CRM DMS. Even though today we don't see the need to reach out to customers, it is inevitable that sooner or later we will do it. And we had a big, I would say, different contradictory view from HO. They had different systems, and we said no, Siebel is very customer centric, focus, and all of that. And we sold the value proposition to the Indian management and to our IT counterparts in headquarters, and we implemented Siebel. It was a great experience. All dealerships, HO, RO, everybody. So fantastic experience. And riding on this, then when we were in the green field and when we were wanting to a new plant in Chakan, and we said, why don't we use this opportunity to build for the future? 20 years later, our foundation should still be relevant, serving its purpose, scalable. So we said we should have fully enabled Wi-Fi, no locational barrier. Why should an equipment be married to a spot from a connectivity perspective? Entire shop floor Wi-Fi. We said we should have IP telephony. Globally, nobody had done it within the Daimler world in a production environment. And we said it's technology. We understand technology, so we know Wi-Fi works in a metallic environment. We just have to engineer it properly. We have to architect it properly, and we did that. So very happy that it's still relevant today. It is still riding on that backbone 20 years later. So great experiences there.
Yeah, awesome. So, Rajiv, I'm still curious. I'm not going to leave you on that. I'm still curious that you managed to pull off these things, and I know how complex MNCs can be, and how much of status quo oriented they can be. So, making these kind of changes is not easy. So, tell
Yes.
me a couple of things that worked for you when you were driving. These I may call it as deviations from the norm.
So I think as a person, I'm blessed with a very easy temperament. People have no problem in discussing with me, and I have no problem in communicating. So my strategy always has been it should be a win-win for everybody. Uh, Everybody, every stakeholder in the chain has to look at it as a win-win. If not, if his work is going to increase because of a change, then we get him to a mindset that he is doing a service to others. And when you position it that way, that you are serving others and you are able to make him believe in that, I think the fulfillment that one gets out of serving others is much higher than a selfish motive. So the
Absolutely,
trick is to develop that mindset in everybody. If your work is increasing, if you are doing 10 things which you were not doing before, but it is helping 10 people down the line, it is helping the organization, it is helping somebody else, and do it as a mark of service, then resistance just melts.
yeah,
So we find that, and in let's say in the case of the global CIO, his biggest fear was disaster. So what happens if it doesn't work, right? So when we address that to say by you are a technology guy, you're a logic, so why would, if we can prove it in a small scale, we can demonstrate like a POC, we can do that, so why would you? So that's how we addressed his fear. And to the local management we sold the value proposition. Look at the possibilities when something is Wi-Fi. You don't worry whether it can be done or not. That is our you focus on extracting value.
absolutely. So I think, I
So
mean, yeah, just to replay it back, of course, you earlier also mentioned that knowing German helped connect with
yes,
people
yes.
and get some of those decisions. But here, I think it's a very very important lesson in change management that you show the larger picture to people. It's not just about increasing my work, but what is the context in which it is increasing? How is it helping the organization? How is it helping your own function, right? And how others are going to appreciate that. And then customizing that particular story for each stakeholder. I think those are the fundamentals of change management. And thanks for sharing that, Rajiv. So, Rajiv, I still have a lot to ask you, but let me pivot back to our audience here. I will Let me see where we finished. Okay, so we have Jitendra from Bangalore. We have Tushar Hatu from TCS Mumbai. Tushar has worked with me earlier. So, hey, hi, Tushar there. And yeah, so Vijay has some words for you. Rajiv is a star like you, and so all eyes are. Oh my God. I thought it was for Rajiv, but Vijay foxed me. But thank you, Vijay, sir. Thank you for
that,
the appreciation.
that is Vijay in all his glory.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Surprising you. And so we have one rapid fire for you, Rajiv. Interested in knowing the approach and framework for of framework being practiced to prevent cyber attacks.
So you want me to answer that?
Yeah, if you can take it as a rapid fire.
Yeah, sure. So so we are using ENY's framework for cyber maturity model. They call it CPM, and we have reached a pretty good level from our own standards, and we are aiming to be the global benchmark for automotive industry within the next few years. So there are
Okay.
a lot of frameworks, and yeah, I mean it's a pretty relevant topic right now.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, Amrendra, I hope that answers your question. So we have Nitin Harne saying hello and Sandeep there.
Right.
And so there is some resonance to what you talked about German. So Sandeep says that being in Germany,
Yeah.
I totally agree with your views on language and people connect as one of the important ingredients to learn and succeed in a global environment. Yeah, I think we have to take an effort to
Yes.
learn local anything which is local, which can help people connect with you.
Yes. Definitely.
Uh,
And in Germany, when I was there, and I took every opportunity to speak in German. My schools attended German school, German language schools, and connecting to people in their language, enjoying their culture, enjoying their food, opens up doors, um, and you open yourself up. So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So then there is a question from Amrinder. He says, "How have you tried to bring in culture change or change management for success of a high-profile critical initiative?"
Yeah.
So you
So I
want to
think I
take it
already
you want
replied
to
to it.
take it now, or you want to answer it as part of my next question about your the
Sure.
CRM DMS
So
journey?
you are the conductor, so you have to.
Okay. So Amrinder, I just realized that we might be covering it, and then I'll bring this question up again if it doesn't get answered. Okay. Then we have another one from Sandeep saying, feeling of service others than fulfilling our responsibility only. Yeah, Sandeep, thanks for that. Rakesh Dhar, Rakesh is from Mahindra. So he says, how do you manage to upgrade your digital assets, IT systems, current to changing business needs? A very, I would say, burning topic for everyone. Prevent technical debt from happening. Yeah, you want to take that?
Acha, so you want me to answer this?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say how do you manage, I think it's all about the value proposition, right? And now, so the strategy that I have used so far is to be ahead of the curve in terms of do things when they are important and don't wait till they become urgent. Now that's a management talk. Now, how does it fit into practice? So into practice, I always try to have an analogy of the context in which the business is situated. So, for example, if it's a production environment and you are talking of something, then you give the analogy of how one would invest in land for the factory. Right? You will invest in land for a factory, not taking into account the needs for the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, but you will take in account for the next 10 years, but not view it as a cost. While the utilization metric, if I go by a utilization metric, it will be only maybe 20% today, but the cost of not doing it and the cost of acquiring further land when you expand, in most cases, it's just not computable, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you use the analogy which is situational to the industry you are in, to the context you are in, and try to find out what are the analogy where you have to invest in with a long term view, but you have to do it today when it is important and not urgent. The advantage you get is you can pace the rate of change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You can take small steps. You can take what somebody calls as a Trojan horse. You can start planting Trojan horse in different parts of the ecosystem and allow them to build from within. And before you know it, you are already there.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, Rajiv, that's a good one, and this is a sort of adage I want to use that if you don't do the important things on time, they'll hit you with a urgency later on, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is, Rajiv, which I have used successfully in keeping it updated, upgraded, is to actually, convert it into some sort of a data point, which I call as the risk register. It's a very simple one, right? So have a technology risk register, where you basically, transparently jot down what are the implications, whatever you said, right? What are the implications of not doing it today? What can you be hit with, right? And then when you publish it, it actually makes people uncomfortable enough to be prioritizing, something which doesn't, on its face, doesn't add that kind of business value. But the moment you start showing the risk and how they can be mitigated, I think that business value part becomes a little more clearer. Yeah.
Sure.
I hope, Rakesh, that answers your question. So now, coming back to my questions now, Rajiv. It seems I'm
Mhm.
competing with the audience for questions.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Rajiv, then you moved over from from Mercedes Benz to Bajaj, and tell us how that journey has been here.
Fascinating. My on a personal level, I am very passionate about mathematics and um, algorithms and all of that. So um, I thought, I still think that Bajaj, with its volume, with its scale, with its spread, great greenfield for using data and analytics to really give a differentiating advantage. So that's how we have been working on, and depending on the maturity, as I said, we sort of go on progressing on that path. Um, Initially, when we came, we were transitioning from a product centric to a brand centric. So we said we have to reach out to the end customer, not stop at the dealer. So we had the dealer management system, we had reporting, getting into. So we were always data driven. We were always in clinical in problem solving. The difference was that we now could do it at scale, and we could now do it at speed because the information is all digitized and available to for analysis. So we are doing that, and you would have seen we are moving more and more to customer centric. So from a brand centric to a customer centric, and it's been a very interesting journey.
Okay, okay, interesting. So, Rajiv, do you want to talk about a bit on the customer transformation that you did, the DMS?
Yeah. So essentially, so I took the tenets that we learned from the mindset of a player like Mercedes Benz, where we are saying a customer is not one person, is part of an ecosystem. There are a lot of influencers there. There is a lot of ecosystem, and therefore, the more we understand the DNA of a customer, we are better able to serve him. So the philosophy of serving a customer and not looking at it as a transactional engagement is, I think, at the core of how we are evolving in our journey.
Okay. Yeah, awesome, awesome. Thanks, Rajiv. So, Rajiv, let me now, go on to something, which is a lot more horizontal, looking at your all your different stints, and which
Sure.
is actually also like, one of the themes of ClarITea Chat when I try to decode, like, why do we have that problem that we have in terms of the low success rate, and
Okay.
it's always that. I mean, one of the big factors is like, is about the asymmetry of talent on the partner side. Like,
Hmm.
majority of the talent is on the technical talent is on the partner side, but the domain is on this side, and then you have problems in matching the two. Now, very refreshing to hear when I was talking to you earlier is that you've been very active in mentoring your partners, giving them, aligning them to your business, and sort of helping
Yes.
them fill their gaps and all that. So, what's the motivation there? And can you please share some case studies of how you mentored your partners, and
So the
and how
motive,
you more than them?
sure. So the motivation is pretty simple. I set myself, my life's purpose is to bring the best out of everyone,
Wow,
out
that's
of
an awesome.
myself, out of everybody whom I have the opportunity to interact with. So that's the simple motivation. Now, my experience in Nimkar taught me that the value of partners, ecosystem, and the necessity to have a win-win for everybody. So that was a learning. Now, when I saw, so I can take example. Let's say in Mercedes of Siebel, we were implementing Siebel, and there was a big gap on warranty. Now, the automotive warranty processes are pretty elaborate in their structure, while the business folks look at it as a very simple. I have my rules. What big deal to automate it? From at that time, the Siebel product perspective, it was not supported. And my argument to civil folks in India was, we are Daimler, we are global automotive company. If we are saying this is a process that we have, I'm sure it will be a global process. So why don't you productize it? So we will give you the domain, we will give you the sensitivity of the business, our rules. You collaborate with other automotive, see how you can configure it so that it becomes it becomes a product. So we got product engineering teams from US, from Siebel, and we had a very nice collaborative work, and it then got productized into a model. So that's one part, how users can influence product people to better develop their product. The second was in the instances, let's say click, in terms of click and
Rajiv, we lost you again. Um, okay, so till the time Rajiv joins back, I hope you guys can hear me. Looks like we lost him temporarily again. So let me again continue the question and answer for you, and let's see if I can answer something. So Rakesh, thanks for qualifying your question. You said it's more in the context of CX and CRM. Yeah, I think in the case of CX and CRM, your the upkeep or keeping your systems upgraded is more should be more around, like, I think most of that CX and CRM is moving towards cloud. And I think once you latch on to that, you should automatically be on a continuous update path, because that's one advantage of going to SaaS platforms, that the needs of the entire collective customer ecosystems can get sort of captured and assimilated into the platform. And the only thing that you have to do is to, like, keep up with the product roadmap and make sure that, like, you're utilizing what you're getting. Okay. So I let me move on to some other questions. Yeah, Sandeep, thanks. Yeah, risk register has always been, like, see, in IT we do many things. Let me just spend a little more time till Rajiv joins back. Um, See, we do a lot of things in IT which are, where there's no, I would say, immediately visible business case. We do a lot of things to keep the operations running, to mitigate the risk, to prevent any kind of operational risk coming in, etc., etc. And therefore, like, a risk register as a mechanism to. Okay, so Rajiv is back. So Rajiv, I'll just finish answering this
sorry
question,
for
and
that.
yeah. No, 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 that's okay. That's okay. It happens, and therefore we have the protocol.
Yes.
So I was just taking a question,
So
and I was just
plan B is in action.
plan B in action. Yeah, yeah. So Sandeep, just to kind of wrap up my answer, a risk register is a very good tool to get IT investments into IT, especially for doing things where there is no direct customer or product or operations impact, but it is necessary to be done to keep the entire thing running. And so anything which is important to do, I think sometimes the risk register helps. So anyway, so coming back, yeah, Rajiv. So we lost you when you were talking about Click. Yeah,
Yeah. So in a manufacturing company, what I understood is people are very visually oriented. Okay,
yeah,
so if they have to make sense of data, which was my mission, then visualization is a much more effective tool than having tables and spreadsheets. So that is how we started on embarked on Click, and I said Click is a very good tool at that time, easy to visualize and all of that. But when we looked at Click as a product, while it was very good on the visualization part of it, it lacked certain abilities in terms of enterprise class security, enterprise class architecture, and therefore we engaged with the then Click MD and their team to say, why don't you build these competencies internally? And we mentored with them. We said, this is what an enterprise class architecture looks like. This is how SAP models its user level access or low level access, and these are the roles, and these are the building blocks of a access architecture. And that is how we sort of partnered with Click. They started the consulting service with 2 or 3 people, schooled in domain, schooled in the art of visualization. And I always believe that the visualization, you always need to have a balance. You achieve something at the cost of something, so you need to have a view on both. You can't just focus on what you want to achieve and be not be aware of what at what cost it is coming. And so these elements of balancing together in a nicely designed visual representation of information is what we partnered with Click. In Bajaj, we are now we are doing a lot of work with startups and encouraging them. We said we have an open playground. That we have use cases, we have data, and you have the appetite and the energy to try out different things, and maybe something works. So that's how we have been doing.
okay. No, that's awesome, Rajiv. I know we are like just at the end of the hour, and for someone like you who doesn't come in the public domain often, I'm sure people are very curious. We see more than almost about 45 participants. I mean, people participating live here in the chat, and therefore the number of questions. So we are likely to go a little over. But fortunately, I'm at the towards the end of this, which is to the rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So, and what I will also do is like whatever questions are left over from the audience, I'll also take it as a rapid fire. So I'll give you an opportunity to answer it like in a real quick way. So it's more like testing your extempore skills. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So Rajiv, you got fired from the job on the day of your birthday, but you got reinstated in 3 days. What
Yes.
happened?
I was responsible for production, and the instruction to me was there was this person from Hindustan Lever, and my instruction was get the quality sample approved and then start production. Now that person came at 4 o'clock in the evening, and he approved the sample only at 5:30 next day morning. So
Oh
two
my
shifts
God.
gone, zero production, and I'm in charge. So I've stopped production. I said my instruction clear, quality inspection first, approval, then start production. 7 o'clock, MD calls me and saying how much production was in the night. I said zero. My achievement was ES and quality. And he said, you are out of the job. And that
So
happened to me my birthday.
you got fired for following instruction.
What I thought was I had done a great job, and he thought I was a disaster, converting a production setup into a research lab.
But you got reinstated in three
But
days.
he got reinstated. Yes, I got reinstated.
And your family didn't even come to know.
I had not told them. I told my children very late to say that what looks like a calamity at that moment of time, in most often in life, turns out to be a blessing later.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so Rajiv, one instance where you had to stand your ground and fight a battle of principles with someone in the business.
Oh, lots of them. But so very easy to understand would be, in the Siebel implementation, we had the problem of how do you allocate stocks to dealers. Now, in the good old paper, pencil, email era, the product manager had was the lord. and all dealers would say, okay, give me something, and he would sort of be the man in charge to do the allocation. And when we were doing Siebel, we said, why do I mean, it has to be rule based. There is an element of transparency. Mercedes is known for transparency and trust, and here we are implementing a system, and we should have a rule-based allocation system. And it didn't find resonance so easily, but we sold. We argued on value of that Mercedes stood for, and finally, yeah, we got it through. But as
Oh,
I
that's
said,
awesome.
principles is always
Yeah, no, no,
good.
and I think you took the corporate principle, which we
Yes,
generally park it somewhere on the bookshelf. You actually took it seriously, brought it to a discussion, and got.
I
Uh,
always do that. I
yeah,
always do that. Whatever organization I go, I look at the corporate values and live it, or try to live it to whatever stance I have.
absolutely. That's, I think another big leadership nugget from here, that these are simple things, but if you just like pour on them for a while and try to internalize them, I think that's a very big value addition that you can do. And I think I'll just add my bit to it, Rajiv. Our teams are very keenly watching us. They're watching our behaviors. They're watching what values we live by. And if you're able to do that, what you just said, I think this really percolates down your entire department and your entire team, however big it may be, right?
Yes, that's
So,
right.
Rajiv, another interesting one, that I got from when I was talking to you is like, when a big leader, demands a certain outcome from you, hey, I want to use technology for this, right? Your answer was very simple. You want three things. What are those three things that you want from leaders when they entrust you with a program?
First, I try to understand why he wants it. Is
Very
it
important.
is it an ego-driven topic? Is it a value-based decision? Is it a strategic decision? That's the first. Second, if then I need to be convinced of that value proposition myself. If I cannot see the large picture, I am humble enough to say, sir, I can't see. Can you educate me? Okay. So humility is at the core. If we come out as arrogant and I know, then for me it's a non-starter. So humility is the core. With all humbleness, sir, I cannot understand a value proposition. Please explain. If I'm convinced of a value proposition, then I can bring my entire energy into the task. When I'm able to bring the entire energy into a task, then my mind works on how to make it possible. Then my mind is not distracted by why it will not be possible. So now when I'm focusing on what will make it possible, what do I need? I need resources, right? So I think what is it that I will need to make it a success? If I need resources could be in terms of time, it could be in terms of money, it could be in terms of people. And the third is I will need somebody to do something for me, right? So I may need the head of that department to communicate to his people. I may need MD for my partner system to invest his mind share into the problem. So if so that's the second or the third thing I do. What is it that I need, and then I go and request them or demand them, depending on the situation. And the third is I try to understand the constraints which have to be honored. So there are some constraints which you just cannot ignore. So these three things I
Absolutely.
would say.
No, that's awesome. But I think I just remembered the thing. Start with why. And, and if that is clear, if that is clear, that's aligned, then I think the next steps become a little more easier. So I will take some audience questions here, Rajiv, and you can answer them
Sure,
in a rapid fire mode. I
sure.
am taking some liberties given the way this discussion is going. I'm taking liberties to go over time. So uh, Vikas is asking, what applications of AI do you see in auto CRM? So you can take like one example.
Oh, best way is to figure out the intent of the person when he is either on your website or in the dealership. Is he there to do a price comparison? Is he there with a genuine intent to buy, or is he a competitor trying to steal your information?
Awesome, awesome. Yes, very important one, and of course a difficult one at that as well. Yeah, yeah. So next one is again, I think the name is hidden. So is how does a leader strive? What challenges have you faced to strive at top?
I think the biggest challenge is internal.
Yeah,
If we are not sure of our own values, of our own strength, of our own conviction in ourselves, I think that's the biggest challenge, which I have faced. How does a leader strive? You understand yourself. So, again, taking from my childhood experiences, I use my Brahmastra is humor. Okay, I use humor to conquer my own fears. I use humor to conquer my own feelings of jealousy, envy, whatever. Right. So I try to fill my heart with humor. When these feelings come knocking at your door, whether it's a envy, whether it is a feeling of fear, whether it's feeling of jealousy, whether it is feeling of anger, I open my heart and embrace these with humor. And when you embrace these feelings with humor, uh, it just
absolutely.
evolves.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. You know, yeah, and I think one of the biggest things about humor is that you take yourself lightly.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's again a big part of humility. So again, again a rapid fire one from the audience. How do you build world class IT organization? Maybe one or two insights.
How to build? So first you have to build it in your mind. Have the conviction what to you is a world class IT organization, right? It cannot be somebody else saying it's a world class organization and then you are building somebody else's vision. Then I don't believe it will be successful. So to yourself, you have to say what to you means a world class organization. You may amplify it, validate it, build it with others, but that's one. And second, you need to have the conviction that you can actually do it. And when you have the conviction, you will have the strength to demand what you need, the humility to accept what you cannot do yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so
No, no, and you know this reminds me that you know everything is built twice. The first time in your mind, second time in the physical reality. But you should be clear what you want. I mean, it can't be
yes,
just, it can't be a mere wish list, right? It has to
agree.
be really thought through, well strategized, researched, and all of that. And again, I you know it comes very simply to you, but Rajiv, I can see from your experience how you really go deep into something and get that conviction that yes, this is what I want. So, uh, Rajiv, maybe a few more questions, rapid fire again.
I'm
Uh,
enjoying this, so don't worry.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I'm just wondering whether you have any evening commitments on a Saturday as the world is starting
I have
meeting
kept
again.
my calendar open.
Oh, that's okay.
The
That's great.
only thing is my wife will have to make me a second cup of tea.
So Veenaji, please do that. Yeah. So yeah. So Rajiv, how do IT and digital go together? You know, there's a technology aspect of the team which is like keeping all the lights on. There's a digital team which has to like go out there, like you know, add some real tangible business value. How do they go together?
Yeah, so as I said, I like to think of them like a continuum. One thing, each, so there are very large overlapping areas and responsibilities. The key is that the leaders have to have the humility and humbleness to work together. Okay, now, of course, for me, digital and tech can mean quite different things. But the way I'm imagining stuff is technology is one which is underlying, and digital is one which is realizing value.
Very nice. Yeah.
Okay, so, and both are equally important. We should not undermine, especially in this age. And I'm reading a very good book by Susan Cain. I would encourage everybody to read it. It's called Quiet, Quiet. And that
Okay.
was one of the questions which I wanted to ask you, Jagdish, when you said I am a shy. What does shy mean? Okay, and this book explains it very nicely. Okay, these two, as I said, so the tech team and the digital team. So what is in this area, we are giving a lot of value on personality, on appearances, on what you see. But please understand that what we see, personality, I like to model it like an iceberg. That is 10% of the story. 90% is what is underneath.
Correct.
And therefore, I tell teams, picture yourself as either you are the 90%, so you have substance, you have content, but you're not seen, or you have 10% where you are seen, but your content is 10%. So you balance.
Yeah. No, actually, very, very interesting. So, in my presentations around IT, when I had to communicate what IT does, I actually used this picture of iceberg, which is a very unique picture,
Oh, really?
which, yeah. And, I
Okay.
would basically, I would put on the top, things which are visible, right? And then I would put everything underneath, right from your information security to, managing support to networks and data centers and everything, which is invisible. And I would say, boss, just to do this small thing which you think, what does IT do? There's so much that IT does. And I think that always used to make an impact. But thanks for that view, Rajiv. So Rajiv, something very few people know about you, a talent.
So I think very few people know that I trained myself to be a life coach,
Wow.
and I'm also neuro linguistic, so NLP, not the natural language processing, but the neuro linguistic programming practitioner. So that's something very few people know, but know as in they know, but I try to practice it. So a lot of people would have observed my choice of words or my interpretation, or when I ask them, "What do you mean by this word?" Like I asked you, "What did you mean by shy?" For example, because what values you associate with that word could be quite different from what values I associate with my word, and
Absolutely.
these values generate feelings and thoughts. Right.
Absolutely.
So that is very few people know I'm trained, but I try to practice them.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, like, out there, yeah, guys, anybody looking for a coach, Rajiv is there. I don't know whether he'll have time to coach you or not, because I can frankly tell you, I've been after him for many months before, getting this opportunity for the ClarITea Chat, just because he's been busy. So, Rajiv, time for a few more questions, maybe a couple of more questions from audience.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, burning topic from Rakesh. How do you manage to attract or retain key digital IT talent, especially in
I would
today's?
say very simple. Uh, I would say make your value proposition for being in your team so strong that see, structurally one cannot replicate structure. One can replicate money. One can replicate. See, just to my wife has given me a second coffee.
Oh,
So thanks,
okay, thank
Vina.
you. Mm,
So I believe structural differentiators. But
mm,
structural differentiators, I mean, for example, the biggest attraction to me is the culture of the team.
yes,
Now, you cannot replicate a culture overnight, right?
absolutely.
So, if your culture is something which attracts big talent, now what attracts talent? In most cases, I see what attracts real talent is the freedom to do what the heart wants to do, right? Their appetite for learning in most cases is quenched by organizational dynamics. Their hunger to make an impact is often stymied by hierarchies. So if you are able to design your culture, your way of working in such a way that everybody feels unshackled, I don't think we have a problem of retaining talent. Now, this is simple to say, and let me be frank. It's difficult to execute, but that's the fun in life, right?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I'll just kind of wrap it up with my comment, the reason why people don't feel free in their mind is like the repercussions of failing. And I think, if you're able to build a tolerance for failure, right, and more like, growth mindset, which is keep learning, keep failing, keep learning. And I think that really attracts the team. Yeah.
Good you touch that point of failure. So I
Yeah.
believe life is a function of multi-dimensional vectors. Why is it a
Ab-
vector? Because unfortunately, time has a direction. That's why it's a vector. It's
yeah.
multi-dimensional, and on one dimensional could be success or failure, but there are so many other dimensions where it's an enriching experience. So
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So there's a long comment from Amrinder, which I wanted to bring it up and read it. Amrinder says, "Can't believe it. Today, some of the comments that I wanted to put and questions I wanted to ask, others are voicing the same, including Jagdish. What all Rajeev Jorapur has shared has struck a chord with us, and today we are on the same wavelength." No, absolutely, Amrinder, and I was really, really serious when I said that the best stories are seldom told. So, Rajiv, I'll answer your question when you said, like, what do you mean by shy? What I meant by shy is like, you're not telling your. I mean, there's a wealth of experience out there, and not many people know about it. So I would put the blame on you for being shy and not telling those stories.
so I will respond to that
It's also a
if
function of
if,
time.
if the format allows.
Yeah.
Uh, the reason why I mentioned this book, Quiet by Susan,
Hmm.
is is exactly what you said. What you said is actually a definition of an introvert. Okay, it is
Yeah.
not a definition of shy.
Hmm.
The word shy, what it actually means is underlying it is fear,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you want to do something, but you are afraid of doing it because of whatever reasons, whether it is speaking in public, whether it is contradicting your boss, whether it is whatever. But the root feeling of that is fear behind the word shy. Whereas introverts, the root feeling is reflection. You are reflecting.
I agree.
What is the other person saying? Why is he saying it? Where is he coming from? So I would rather, in my mind, position myself as an introvert by nature, but I can choose to be articulate, like I'm trying the behavior now. Right, in this session, I try to be an extrovert.
Yeah, no, so that way you are not shy. I think you're more of an introvert.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So there is one question from your colleague. So he's asking a few words on your yoga practice, how it has
Oh,
helped in your career.
he knows me very well. He's my cousin.
Okay.
So how you? So what has yoga taught me? Amongst other things, it has taught me balance. So it has taught me balance, to say that balance is important, but the way, I mean, while balance is important, even more important is how do you achieve it? Okay. So I am in equilibrium balance state, which means I forget that word. So it's like you have an inverted bell and there's a ball on top. Okay. Now this is what we would call an unstable equilibrium, because a small nudge you will roll down. So this is not balance. Okay. But if you have a cup like this and a ball is here, even a small nudge, while temporarily you may go up, but you'll come back to a balanced state. So yoga has taught me to be in a equilibrium balanced state, independent of other forces. You may be buffeted for a while. I mean, of course, you're buffeted for a while, but it's very easy for you to come back to your balanced state. So that's one thing which yoga has taught me. The other it has taught me is to embrace opposites. So let's talk of change in the IT context. If you want to drive change, right, at the what we tend to believe is at the core is something is changing, and that's the core. But for me, that is not the core. For me, that is periphery. At the core of change is what is not changing. Okay, and that card I always play, especially as you go higher up the hierarchies, because more and more hierarchy they operate more on values,
Absolutely.
right? So if you position your argument saying that, look, this is truer to your value system than the current state, why would you not attempt it? Right? Is it fear? Then let's overcome. Let's see where this fear is coming from. Address fear. Is it coming from uncertainty? Let's embrace uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Right. So that is so
No,
embrace
that's awesome.
opposite.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, like, I have not been a very regular practitioner of yoga, but yes, I have. I mean, yeah, I have been. I know what exactly you mean, and I think I have benefited from the same, practices and the same, I would say, reflections which come from meditation. It's
Correct.
basically knowing yourself better, and I think it really makes you immune to a lot of external forces. You yourself become very solid that
Yes.
you can't really get swayed too much, right, by the
Yes.
external.
So, for example, just to round it off with a practical example, let's say you want to you want to learn how to bend to your right, for example. Okay. The intuitive way is to have all muscles bending right. Okay, and so your left leg also starts shifting. But the right yoga technique, I have learned, and maybe there are better yoga practitioners who may be even more advanced. But what I have learned so far is, if you want to bend right, first fix left.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay, fix your left first, lift yourself up, and then go right. You will reach right faster than if even your left leg wanted to go right, for example.
absolutely. No, actually, I've got a yoga teacher. I do 3 times a week, and he does exactly this thing. So when I have to bend right, he will ask me to focus completely on my left, like, and the entire focus should be on the left hand, and and then automatically everything shifts. Hey, a great one, Rajiv. Meanwhile, I want to acknowledge a couple of guys who are not very visible nowadays. So one is Mr. Anil Khokar, the guy who hired you in Bajaj.
Yes, he was the one who, let us say, tempted me into Bajaj. So thanks, Anil.
Yeah. Thanks, Anil sir, for joining us. And then I have another good colleague, Sunil Punjabi. Sunil, good to see you watching Clarity Chat. And yeah, he wasn't well for some time. So looks like you're coming back on track. I'm happy to see you here, and wish you to get back to full-fledged, energetic, working very soon. So at this point, maybe I think I've been grilling you all this while, Rajiv. So the last part of our chat, your question to me, revenge question.
Okay, so I always admired you as a leader. Now, while I know that at some level leadership qualities are more or less similar, independent of a domain, but in your view, what would be three specific competencies that you would like to see in future uh, IT/digital leaders?
Oh, that's a very loaded question. I have to
Of
really
course,
think on that.
I got the opportunity.
Yes, that's a real revenge. That's a real. Okay, so let me give it a shot. So I think what is happening with digital is that IT is coming more and more into the forefront. It is creating a lot more tangible business impact, rather than just providing that plumbing. And therefore, the first and the biggest thing that IT leaders of future should be learning is to keep connected with the business. To to be solving real problems, to be really getting in touch with the ground, and not make it top down, make it bottoms up, create a difference to the lives of those people who will be using your technology, which is, I call it being experience driven. So, but that's also becoming difficult because there's like so much of technology complexity which is increasing at a faster and faster pace. So that may, so sometimes, like it may tear you apart, whether do I do that or do I do this. But I think that one, in my view, is more important. The
Okay.
second thing, again, is like agility, because again the technology world is moving very fast. You need to keep connected, so you need to be very agile. In fact, as I'm also like building a startup, I'm learning a new concept of evolutionary architecture. So we were talking about fixing an architecture for 20 years, but I think in today's world, especially if you're born in the cloud, born digital company, or upon digital initiative, you can't even say that I will build something for 20 years. So you will have to go further down and like work at an architecture level, that how can I componentize and how can I like keep shifting these pieces as technology evolves. And I think the core value that comes that is underlying that way of thinking is agility, right? And the third thing I would say, and this is something that I try to live, is that people do business with people. So everything that we do around, whether it's transactions, interactions, whatever we do, no, it's actually very easy to get lost in the technicality or in the framework level and all of that. But let's understand that eventually it's like people working with people. So keep yourself people focused. Okay, don't ride roughshod on them. Okay, don't ignore them, and eventually we should all. And here I would like to quote Arun Gupta, who came in, I think, our seventh or eighth ClarITea Chat. That it should be about what is the feeling with which somebody leaves a meeting with you. That should always be a good and pleasant feeling. And as we are running faster, the world is getting stressful, we tend to forget that. So let's be empathetic, focus on people, let's be agile, and let's be outcome focused, customer focused. So that was a good question, Rajiv. I hope I did justice to it.
Yeah, I mean, we could have
So,
gone on, but
yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could go on. I think it's another of the longer chats. And to everyone out there listening to us, this was my biggest fear, which I have voiced to Rajiv two, three times, that, this one I'm not going to be able to control the time, given what I've heard in my preparatory chats with Rajiv, which actually became not one but two. Generally, I have one chat, but with Rajiv, it went on for very long, and I didn't want to stop that as well. But thanks everyone for your patience, for attending this, for being with us for almost 1.5 hours. Thanks, Rajiv, for your patience. And again, it has been very, very engaging conversation. I lost sense of time, and I think many of us did. And thank you all of those out there who are going to be watching this recorded version, especially on the weekend. So everyone out there, please enjoy your family time. Have a great weekend. And Rajiv, thank you for joining me on ClarITea Chat today. It has been one of the most exhilarating conversations with a shy guy. Okay, no, with an introvert.
thanks a lot, Jagdish. I really thank you, and I should thank one of my colleagues, Sushrut, who really pushed me into saying, "Why don't you
Yes,
take
yes.
this?"
So a couple of your colleagues, like, they were also pushing me. Boss, you must get Rajiv on the chat. So,
So I enjoyed myself a lot, and so to wind up, as a child, I was a very naughty boy, and my uncle would call me KNOTTY boy, a naughty boy. And I hope to exhibit that full circle now, and also again become a naughty.
but I hope you noticed the comment from Bhabiji, yeah?
No.
This is the one.
Oh.
Enjoyed for bringing the introvert CIO in the public forum.
Oh.
And thank you for everyone who pushed Rajiv and who pushed me. And with that, we come to the end of the chat. Thank you, Rajiv, for joining me on ClarITea Chat today. And we'll
Thanks a
be
lot.
back next Saturday, yes, 19th March. Till then, goodbye. And I think between now and then, there'll be Holi. So happy Holi to everyone. We'll be back next Saturday. Thank you,
Thanks a
Rajiv, sir.
lot, everybody who spent the time watching us. Thanks a lot, Jagdish and your team.
Thanks, Rajiv.
Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.